Yeah. And he's going to talk to us about designing for activism, reimagining the contributor experience to the OONI Probe. So, hand it over to you.
Thank you. Actually, this is my fifth year presenting here, so it's kind of like I'm not really a newcomer, but still it's also real good to see faces, starting from a few years ago when only quite less people showed up, and seeing so much interest in open source design. Now it's really reassuring. I'm Elio. I do open source design. Actually, I've been with this community for quite a few years now. And this community quite inspired me also to do my own design studio, which is only doing stuff for open source projects. So any project you can imagine probably needs at some point some design love, some UX love, some usability love, and we try to help these projects. I'm here because of Mozilla was so kind to support me to travel here. I'm also a speaker at Mozilla, which is a volunteer program with training and travel, a lot of speakers. So if you have also some Firefox questions or whatever, you can ask me afterwards as well. I'm also a UX designer at OONI, Open Observatory of Network Interference, which is part of the Tor Project. So what is actually OONI doing? This is what I'm going to talk about today, and how we improve the software to make it available to new users and more useful to power users. So it's basically an internet censorship measurement tool. So if you live in areas which is not really Western civilizations, but for example in countries where a lot of censorship happens, we actually measure these events and send that data to OONI servers. Users can use that data to write reports, to go into courts, and yeah, whatever you can imagine a real good activist can do. Since 2012, we have been getting quite a few measurements, namely 200 million from, I think, like 180 countries or something. And out of quite a few pieces of software. One of them is being OONI Probe. So this is actually funny. I got involved at OONI after seeing this job posting at Open Source Design, I think like 2.5 years ago. They were looking for a designer. This is how I got in touch. Later on, I've been at OONI and Tor Project for almost 2 years now. So it's quite a circle, and here we are again, right? So how OONI Probe works is that you install the software on your mobile phone, iOS or Android, or your desktop, or even a Raspberry Pi. So if you want to run tests, see what websites are blocked, and messaging apps are blocked, you can do that from your phone. Or if you have a lot of censorship going on in your country, which is not the case in Belgium, but for example in Iran or other countries, there's quite a lot of censorship happening. You can even have a Raspberry Pi which runs measurements constantly without you doing anything. So this data gets published on our OONI Explorer, which is kind of an open data portal where everyone can research the data and see what might be interesting to them. Also API for all developers and researchers who want to have more power over this. So actually, this app has been released 2 years ago, and we wanted to revamp the user experience because a few people had problems understanding what all these technical terms meant, like HTTP header field manipulation, request line, and all that kind of stuff. So this is when we started to redesign the app, and I'm going to show you through a few features we have redesigned in the app, how it was in the old one, and how it is in the big one, new one. So we started with a new color scheme. Before we To improve the semantics, we put a color for every kind of test, so you know in which kind of environment you are. So if you are in an instant messaging environment, you have this kind of color, but also about status. So you can see if something is censored, something is accessible. You are not sure if it's censored or not based on the color. So this would help with the visual cue any user to know what they're doing. Also in the first step, we had tests for every little thing. So we had this kind of tests. Everything was accessible to the user from the first screen. And we said that this should be a bit easier for newcomers who really don't understand what the header field manipulation is. So we grouped them into 5 different classes. And this made it very easier for people to get into each of them and then explore from there, depending on what they're interested in. Obviously, sometimes you are interested only in instant messaging apps. So you wouldn't want to go through all of them, right? We also had new website categories. So an icon set, which is done by the Citizen Lab. So there's a global test list with thousands of websites, which are often blocked. And each of these websites belongs to a category. And we did the icon set for each category. And when you test now, and you feel not comfortable, for example, testing hate speech websites, you can disable that, and it tests for everything else, basically, afterwards. So yeah, what we did with that, on the left you can see the old app. We have every test listed here, so it's very text-heavy. And we also have a hamburger menu with slides, which was sometimes not really noticeable for people. And we just changed it to a card approach with 4 cards. This is scrollable. And people would not need to click on every test to run them, but they could just explore the test by tapping on a card. Also, when the test was progressing, many of our users and contributors, that's a better name, didn't really notice that this was actually running. We had only a progress bar here. But with the new one, we have a kind of an animation which shows that the test is actually running and shows you kind of an estimate how long it's going to take. Also, the past test results shows you a bit more information, more power user information, without, hopefully, I hope, without not making it too heavy on the eye. So we can see, as I said, based on the color cues, what kind of tests we have to deal with. The websites test in this example. You can filter through tests. You can see how much data you used, because a lot of censorship is happening also mobile data, and not a lot of people have the privilege to have terabytes of mobile data as well. The overview, where you can access many tests. This is the old version of the websites test, and compared to the new one. Still a bit too much text in the new one to my taste, but we are constantly improving that. So any suggestions are also welcome. In this version, you are also able to choose your websites and run custom websites. That means that if you don't want to just run random websites, but you know that, I don't know, FOSDEM.org might be censored, you can just click that in, type that in, and only test for that website. So this is only the part of OONI Probe, which is the contributor experience, the man on the ground who submits data. But we also have a little bit of an ecosystem with other things as well, which is the OONI Explorer, the portal which can visualize all this data. For this, we are redesigning the whole platform. We are working with Antonella, who is also the UX lead at Tor Project, and hopefully making it easier for people to make sense of the data, because it's not really simple stuff. We also have a Probe desktop beta out now, which you are free to test. It basically has a similar experience to the mobile app. It's not as polished yet. And yeah, you can run the same test from your desktop if you are not big of a mobile person. And one of my favorite things is actually OONI Run. So OONI Run is a little website where you can create a test list of websites. So let's say you have an spreadsheet with a list of websites which you think might be blocked. And you don't want to test each one by one, right? So we have a 400 websites list. You just share it with your friends. And they can type this in here in OONI Run. And it creates a link which, when opened, everyone can test these 400 websites in this example. So in this way, you can create some critical mass, create an initiative where all people are testing for these websites, get more measurements, and make some sense of what is happening regarding censorship in that country. Because censorship is quite difficult to prove. It can be something can be censored in 1 minute, the next minute it might not. So constant measurements throughout time and throughout different networks are very important. Just because you did one measurement at one given time does not mean much often. So it's a quite complicated thing. So after opening OONI Run, you get navigated to the mobile app, which is testing all these websites and giving you the results. Something which a lot of people prefer rather than the test lists which are readily made available for the country. So yeah, that's basically a very sneak peek into the new UX design we are doing at OONI Probe. If you are interested to get involved, we have a design channel, so I'd be happy to help out. If you don't like Slack, which is very understandable, we also have an IRC, which is also bridged. So please feel free to join us or an issue on GitHub. Yeah, check out the website. I guess that is all. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah. You, yeah.
What tests do you run? What are the tests?
So we have a. Sorry. The question was what tests we run. So let me go quickly to this slide. So these are all the tests which are run, which are neatly organized into these groups. So web connectivity means if a website is blocked or not. Then we have 3 messenger tests: Telegram, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. We have speed tests, which you might know from speedtest.net. NDT speed test is something which shows, well, your network speed. Dash stream means how well you can stream video on your network connection. The reason we did these tests in OONI Probe is because many countries throttle the internet instead of censoring. So they make the network is so slow you are actually unable to check a website. So it also is really useful to show some net neutrality violations, but this is still very basic, something we are exploring in the future as well. Both HTTP tests are for middle boxes, which are inserted by the network. Sometimes it might be malicious, sometimes it might mean nothing. It just means that some middle box is present on a network. It's not necessarily bad or good. We also have circumvention tests, which is regarding Tor right now. We also are adding new ones. So it basically tells you whether Tor network is accessible. For example, China is censoring Tor quite often, and in many countries it's not that easy to access Tor. So yeah, that's basically the number of tests. Yeah?
You also mentioned hate speech somewhere in there.
Yeah.
What kind of content-based tests are being run?
This is the test list by Citizen Lab, which is curated by them. It's a crowdsourced list, categorized. I'm not sure about the committee who decides on that. I think it's open source, and a discussion can be initiated regarding that. But yeah, basically all of these 30 test categories, they serve to categorize all these websites. Yeah?
Speaking of measurements, did you have the opportunity to test the new UI with actual users in face-to-face meetings? Like new users who didn't know the application before and already existing users who had to get accustomed to the new one, as well as beginners and more power users?
So we did a round of usability studies, which were not face-to-face because we are a distributed team in different cities. From new to a very experienced, and the new UI is based on this feedback we got from them. Of course, there's a lot of stuff on the plate I would like to address, but we are a very small team, and yeah, we need more manpower to address more things. So any help is appreciated. Yeah.
Did you run these tests once the UI was already implemented in kind of working prototype, or did you test it for static layouts already? At which step exactly did you have the opportunity to test the reaction to the new UI?
We did two.
Your assumptions were correct.
Yeah, we did two tests, one with a non-working prototype very early on, when the design was kind of finished, and one after the beta was out. The alpha was out. So yeah, based on these decisions, we did changes to the design. Other questions? Yeah.
Personally, I'm one who enjoys lots of details and information and like logs going by. So I'm curious, is it easy to like see exactly which test and what it does within the application, or do you have to like run the test and then look at the published data?
Yeah.
For example, the input testing, right? Can you see which tests are run for that specific category?
Sorry, I have not included this here, but yeah, that's actually possible. So thanks for reminding me of that. So for every test group, which is basically this one, we have many different tests. For example, instant messaging includes all these 3 messaging apps. Some people don't like to test all of them, so you can enable or disable them in the settings. And once you run the test class as a test, you get results for each of them separately. So you can tap on whatever you prefer to have. Also, if you run a websites test, it tests 30 random websites, and you can check every website individually. And if you want to even go a bit more deeper, you can also check the actual raw data, which is a bit more hidden, but it's accessible for power users. Yeah.
Bounce back on the question. Do your user have the opportunity to save the configuration of tests, of all the tests on the...
Like exporting the tests?
No, just to be able to reproduce the test, in fact. It is done so on the setting they can check or run check a different kind of tests, but just to be able to save that battery of tests and reproduce it regularly, or they have to each time?
Yeah, we don't have that yet. There are not too many settings, but it might make sense to include that. When you uninstall the app right now, all these settings are lost. It's also... There are some privacy-related settings, which is kind of a chicken and egg problem, including your IP address and network name and all that kind of stuff, which people don't like to share. But it's actually not really useful to us if we don't have that data. So doing measurements without a network name and whatever is kind of defeats the purpose. Some people also use VPNs, which also defeat the purpose. Yeah, but yeah, that's a future request we could address. Yep.
So, as you have been talking a little bit about, there's an inherent risk in running some of these tests, depending where I'm at in the world, right? Have you done any work in the interface trying to convey the risk of, say,
Yes. In the onboarding, when you actually install the app for the first time, we have a little pop quiz. And it says that, are you aware that your data might be watched by government agencies, blah, blah, blah. We are going a bit crazy over there, but just to make sure that the user understands the risks. Yeah, this is the time. That the user understands the risks. Until now, nothing happened since 2012. That doesn't mean anything, so we just want to make sure we are doing this in the onboarding to educate the user and the contributors what this means. Any last question? Yep.
What's the trend of the tests? Like, are they increasing or stable? Or?
Like the number throughout time? Yeah, they are constantly increasing. We are doing partnerships with a lot of organizations around the world which care about human rights and internet freedom. And we are publishing constantly reports. For example, in Zimbabwe, there was some internet outage a week ago, which was quite a big deal. And sadly to say, the more of these events happen, the more people and measurements we get. So the fact that we got more measurements means that more shit is happening around the world as well. But yeah, we are getting more measurements. Okay, yeah.
One of the design changes you showed was from clicking a run button and with menu, and moves to a single page showing a progress bar.
Yep.
While this increases like their awareness that there is progress happening, that test is running, it also means that the user can't queue up runs. Was this how do you trade off information sharing with usage features?
Okay, I think. Sorry, I've been not repeating all the questions all this time. I'm sorry for the recording, which is getting out now. How we deal with the trade-off for the progress bar, which has less features. Sorry, let me just go through this quickly. Actually, all of this is available in the new app. It's just differently laid out. So you can actually go to the settings, select the test you want to run, and you run them from the cart. Right now, it's problematic if you cancel a test. This might create anomalous measurement data, so we don't allow the user to do that. The next feature request is going to be queue up tests. So we can queue up different tests you want to do and just keep the phone away and not being on the phone all the time. I don't think there's much trade-off here, to be honest. It's everything in the old app is available in the new app. The fact that you think it's not available is a good thing because it looks simpler. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, if there's any more questions, you can have a chat with Elio afterwards. Time, etc. Thank you very much, Elio, for a really interesting.
Thank you.